Okay, I want to start with this disturbing story. It's a very familiar type of story, which is why I want to talk about it. But this is even more disturbing than usual. So to begin with, here's a local news report on yet another teacher sex scandal. But the details here are, as I said, even shocking by the standards of these kinds of stories. Listen to this.
New tonight, more teenage students in Morgan County are now coming forward, and they're accusing a former teacher of sexual misconduct with a minor. Ashton Hackman is in Morgan County to explain why the prosecutors are now looking to bring even more charges against this woman.
31-year-old Brittany Fortenberry has been held here at the Morgan County Jail since her arrest last month on charges of sexual misconduct with a minor. Since then, 5 new victims have come forward with additional allegations.
Prosecutors have asked to file up to 24 additional criminal charges against her, including 10 counts of child molesting, sexual misconduct with a minor, and 13 other charges for disseminating material harmful to minors and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Court documents say all of the teens reported Fortenberry would send them nude and explicit photos and videos on Snapchat and force them to have group sex at her Martinsville home. A child victim advocate says it's important for parents to feel comfortable having difficult conversations with their children.
And what we just encourage is that parents kind of ask that open-ended question and they give their children a chance to speak, and then they praise their courage at that time rather than asking them questions about what they did or why they didn't tell. The last thing that we want is a child to feel blame or shame as a result of making a disclosure.
We reached out to the Morgan County Prosecutor's Office to see when these formal charges will be filed. We have not yet heard back.
Now, it actually gets much worse than what you just heard because according to WTHR in Indianapolis, this woman allegedly abused multiple middle school boys, 13 years old, were the victims, at least some of the victims. And that includes, on one occasion, allegedly having them all wear Scream masks, masks from the movie Scream, while she molested them. And she was also paying them, these young boys, hundreds of dollars for them to send her explicit pictures, $100 to $800 in some cases. And she told them that if they reported any of this to anyone, that she would kill herself. And she was also drugging them, allegedly drugging them as part of this whole process of grooming and molestation and abuse. Now, assuming this is all true, it makes you wonder, as you always have to wonder in these kinds of cases, how in God's name did a woman like this get a job as a teacher in the first place? Yes, we can assume that she was not advertising the fact that she's a sexual predator. She probably wasn't putting it on the resume or on the job application. She wasn't mentioning it in the interview process, but it's just impossible to believe that there were no warning signs. It's impossible to believe that she came off as totally normal and never gave any indication that she was a demented predatory freak. It's not like these people are not criminal masterminds. Okay, these are not evil geniuses we're talking about here. I mean, they're sending, allegedly, pictures back and forth. That's the easiest way to get caught is to create this digital paper trail, which in these kinds of cases, it's every single time you hear that. That's always part of it. So my point is that these are not people who appear to be brilliant deceivers, right? And if that's the case, then how do they get the job? I mean, we know this about predators. You don't just start off one day molesting multiple children in Halloween masks at your home, allegedly. This happens as part of a long, long pattern of behavior. It's a pattern of increasingly awful, deranged behavior, and it's very difficult to believe that there were not warning signs. But the most disturbing thing is the larger pattern. The systemic pattern. You want to be able to write this off as an aberration, as an extreme case, as an isolated incident. You want to be able to say, well, throw this woman in jail forever and the problem solved. You want to be able to say that, but that is not anywhere close to the reality. This is not isolated. This is constant. I mean, we all know that. It's a constant never-ending thing. One teacher after another, after another, after another. For decades and decades, decades upon decades, hundreds, thousands at this point probably, of predatory teachers, one after another. We hear about open secrets, right? During the Me Too era, we would always hear about this or that predator. There was an open secret that this was. Well, what's happening with teachers is an open secret among the entire American population. It's an open secret among everybody. We all know it. And for every one that has been caught, we know it stands to reason there's another 1 or 5 others that haven't been caught. Because we also know that when you've got a systemic problem of sexual abuse inside an institution, you're not catching all of them. Grand Canyon University, a private Christian university in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, believes that we're endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. GCU believes in equal opportunity and that the American dream starts with purpose. GCU equips you to serve others in ways that promotes human flourishing and creates a ripple effect of transformation for generations to come. By honoring your career calling, you impact your family, your friends, and your community. Change the world for good by putting others before yourself to glorify God. Whether your pursuit involves a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral degree, GCU's online, on-campus, and hybrid learning environments are designed to help you achieve your unique academic, personal, and professional goals. With over 340 academic programs as of September 2024, GCU meets you where you are and provides a path to help you fulfill your dreams. The pursuit to serve others is yours. Let it flourish. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University, private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu. So this is a system-wide problem. This is an epidemic. There is a decades-long epidemic of sexual abuse by educators in our school system. Yet we have not reached a point, even now, where the public is ready to treat this as an epidemic. And that's what and I'm not even playing dumb or saying this rhetorically. I really don't quite understand why there is not mass public outrage bordering on even hysteria over the fact that our public school system is infested with sex predators. It's very difficult to understand. The public school still has not gotten the Catholic Church treatment. I've been talking about this epidemic of teacher sex abuse for many years, going back to when I was just blogging for a living. I've been on this story for many, many years. And every time I talk about it, the response is like a big yawn. Most people don't care. They don't want to discuss it. Sex abuse scandal in the church. Yes, that's a big deal. Let's discuss it. Sex abuse scandal in Hollywood. Yes, let's turn that into a news cycle that lasted like an entire year. But sex abuse in public school, where we send like 50 million children every day, somehow doesn't attract anywhere close to the same level of interest. Even though almost none of us have children in Hollywood, very few people these days, comparatively few people these days are going to Catholic Church, and therefore comparatively few. There's comparatively few people are, and even if they are, sending their kids in to be altar boys and all the rest of it. So, those are institutions where, compared to the public school system, right, very few children are at risk. The public school system, though, again, 50. What's the latest number? I think it's around 50 million kids are going every single day into this environment, and yet, and we all know. There's no one. If you said, "Well, there's a sex abuse epidemic with teachers in public school," I don't think there's any. You'd meet anyone out on the street that would deny that, and would say, "What? I haven't heard that. What are you talking about? That's crazy talk." Every time we see one of these stories, we all say the same thing. Oh, another one? Yeah, here we go. Here's another one. And yet we're just not treating it like an epidemic. Now, I do know part of the reason. I know why the media is not interested in pursuing this story what was that movie that won all the Oscars, Spotlight, about the Boston Globe journalists or whatever it was that help uncover the sex abuse epidemic in the Catholic Church, particularly in the Boston area. And the movie was fun. It was kind of a boring movie. It didn't deserve to win all the awards it did. But that's that's Hollywood calling attention to that problem and sort of canonizing these journalists that were chasing down the story. Well, where are the journalists chasing down this systemic abuse epidemic in the public school system? Where is the, Boston Globe style expose about, I'm not talking about just reporting on one case or another isolated, but where are the big stories? Right? Or the journalists that were chasing down in the early days of Me Too. Where are the big stories reporting on, look, here's this, it's not just one thing, here's the whole story of how this is happening. Look, here are the administrators that are covering it up. Here are the teachers that are accused of inappropriate conduct, and rather than being arrested or fired, they're just moved to another district. All of that is happening. The story is right there. And there's no interest in chasing it down. And for the media, it's obvious why they're not interested in chasing it down. Politically, it doesn't serve them to point out that there are a lot of sex predator public school teachers. A lot. Doesn't serve them anything to point that out. And maybe that's kind of it. Maybe that explains the whole mystery here of why there doesn't appear to be any sort of intense public interest in this epidemic. And maybe the answer is that, well, the media still does have a lot of power to shape narratives. And this is a narrative that they're not interested in shaping or talking about. And so it isn't discussed. I don't know what it is. I can't explain the kind of lackadaisical attitude that not everybody, but that so many people seem to have about this. But whatever explains it, we got to snap out of it because this is a real thing. I mean, you go back, every time I talk about this, I bring up the 2004 study that was done by the Department of Education about the teacher sex abuse epidemic. And this is 20 years ago that they did this study. And they found that I think it was at the time, 1 in 10 students, by the time they graduate, will be the victim of sexual misconduct by a staff member at a school. 1 in 10, that's 10%. That's millions. That's millions and millions of kids. That's not a small number, okay? That's a huge number. 10% is a mind-boggling number. And that was 20 years ago. Has it gotten better since then? Is that how it usually works? When you've got a sex abuse epidemic in an institution and you just ignore it, does it go away? Does it get better? No. It only gets worse. It gets worse and worse and worse until somebody does something about it. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.